o'clock, Chairman.
Good evening, members. I'll start off by reading the webcasting introduction. This meeting is to be webcast, and I would like to remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. If any public speakers on MS Teams do not wish to have their images captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Please also be aware that if technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting, and members are reminded to activate their microphones before speaking and turn them off once they're finished. Moving on to item 2, advice to public speakers. That's for noting on pages 5 to 6 of your agenda pack. All speakers will have 3 minutes to which they can make the representations. Moving on to item 3, apologies for absence, Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Chairman. Tonight we have apologies from Councillors Baldwin, Bannow, Morgan, Jennings, Kaufman and Barlow.
Thank you very much. Any other apologies for absence? Councillor Williamson?
Also apologies from Councillor Smruti Patel.
Thank you. Noted. And moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Murray?
Yes, I think this is probably being overcautious, but I prefer to be overcautious. It's non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary. Agenda item 7, 10 Rectory Lane, because of its proximity to Buckingham Court, and the Loughton Town Council, which I'm a member of, is a tenant of Buckingham Court.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks? If you have your microphone on. Yeah.
I also dual-hatted and on the Town Council.
Okay. Fine. Any other declarations of interest from anybody else?
I don't think, Chairman, that warrants a declaration because I am and so is Caroline.
Noted.
There is no conflict of interest.
Okay. And noted. I'll just give a general introduction actually as well. I forgot to introduce the officers. Is that next to me? So to my left I have our planning officer, James Rogers. To my right from Democratic Services I have Mr. Gary Woodhall, and in the corner we have our webcasting officer, Pat Seeger. For those watching on the webcast or those in attendance, I'm Councillor Kazrisvi. I'm the chairman for this evening. I am the ward member for Chigwell Village, and I will be a voting chairman if necessary. So moving on to item 5, minutes. We've got that on pages 7 to 8 of the agenda pack. Can we take those as agreed? Agreed. Great. And moving on to item 6, site visits. So I'd like to propose a site visit for application EPF 2113/20, which is Haynott Hall, 173 Lambourne Road, Chigwell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sanger?
Thank you, Chairman. I think this application does warrant some more information for members to consider, so I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we take a vote from members of the committee for a site visit for that application? Councillor Patel, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Can we at least ask why site visits being requested?
Yeah, I think. I mean, as the neighbouring ward member, it's clearly a very prominent site, and I drive past her all the time. I know it very well. I think there's been a lot of discussion amongst the Chigwell councillors specifically about the design and about the application itself. So I think with all of that in mind and all of the objections actually that have been raised by members of the public, I think it's sensible to have members visit the site on there. Councillor Lyon, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I live in Chigwell Road, so this site is quite close to where I live, and I do walk past it on a regular basis. There has been considerable development on the site over years. It is a Grade 2 listed building. There already is a swimming pool on the site, an indoor swimming pool, which was quite controversial when that was approved. This is an additional outdoor swimming pool, so I think we do need to have a look at the site, and I think it's justified looking at exactly what is going on there, because not only is there a swimming pool, but there's outbuildings that are being put on the site as well. So I would very much support that. request.
Councillor Sungo, did you want to add?
Just to add to that, I mean, in terms of number of neighbours that were consulted, I think there were 11 objections. That's quite a large number of people making some noises. So I think it's only fair we actually get to the site and have a look.
Agreed. If I can put that as a vote for members of the committee, all those in favour of a site visit for that application.
It's agreed, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I would request officers to liaise with members regards to suitable dates for it, bearing in mind it's kind of August and it falls well within the holiday season for many. Okay, perfect. And any other requests for site visits? Councillor Chris Pond.
Chairman, thank you. This is on behalf of one of the ward members, Roger Baldwin, who requests that a site visit be held to in respect of application number 1399, 39 Albion Hill. The reason he requests it, so he told me on the telephone, is because although the site owner has said that people can have carte blanche to wander around his premises, he wanted a planning officer to be present because there are certain quite intricate considerations about levels and what is not permitted development. And he wanted the planning officer present to be able to ask on site what is actually permitted and what isn't. So on his behalf, I move.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Chovia? Yeah. Okay. And I'll bring it before members to have a vote on a site visit for that. So all those in favour, please show.
I don't want one at the front, so why should we?
Oh, someone's got the microphone on. 10, Chairman.
Thank you. All those against?
None, Chairman. The rest must be abstentions.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that will be a site visit which will be coming back to the committee meeting at a subsequent date, and officers will liaise with members on that as well. Okay, and moving on to agenda item 7, which is application EPF /0829/23, 10 Rectory Lane, Loughton, IG10 to RL, and I'll hand over to Mr. James Rogers to present the application. Really good point. At this stage, if any members of the public or any speakers for the site visits that being called, you're welcome to leave the chambers. If you prefer to stay, you're more than welcome to join us for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and good evening to everybody tonight. So yes, the only item on tonight's agenda is EPF 0829/23, which is 10 Rectory Lane in Loughton. The proposal is for the demolition of an existing building and the erection of a new building to provide 5 new commercial units. The application is before members tonight due to an objection from Loughton Town Council and neighbours, and officers are recommending that planning permission is granted. So starting with the application site, this is the site here, located close to the junction of Rectory Lane and Goldings Hill. I believe the Loughton Town Council members will be very familiar with this building. This is the Loughton Town Council office, located directly adjacent, and there are other existing employment and commercial uses as well. The entirety of the area, so including this factory to the north, including the Loughton Town Council office, and down this building here to the south, is designated for employment use in the local plan. So here is an existing photograph of the site. You can see it's a utilitarian building in its appearance. And turning to the proposal, it's to demolish the existing building and to erect a replacement to deliver these 5 new commercial units, which will be comprised of a workshop, office space and a showroom. So this is the proposed block plan showing that the building will sit directly adjacent to existing employment uses on the site. It will go all the way to the boundaries as well. And the ground floor will be used for workshop uses. and there are also 9 car parking spaces provided, including 1 disabled space. This is just to show members that it's, the first floor will be used as a showroom, and incidentally the ground floor the ground floor goes all the way up to the boundary to the north, but the first and second floors do not. So I'll show some elevations in a minute just to show it's a sort of a cantilevered building. But this is just to ensure that the first floor and indeed the second floor shown here is set away from this shared boundary where there are neighbours to the north. The minimum distance is 5 metres to that shared boundary. So these are the proposed side elevations of the new buildings. Members can see the elevations of the neighbouring buildings to the north and south, clearly outlined in red and blue. Clearly, the proposal is a significantly larger building than these neighbours, and it's significantly larger than the existing building that's currently on the site. However, as this 3D image shows, it is comparable to the Town Council offices located here. It's actually lower in ridge height overall to this building. And this image shows a 3D section. As I said, it's a cantilever design, so this is the element that goes up to that shared boundary to the north, and then the building has this somewhat unique design where the first and second floors are set as far away as possible. This is a CGI image of the building, putting it into some context. You can see that it's of a reasonable scale, and its height and mass is reasonable as well, given the context of this designated employment site. And finally, this is just a CGI from Rectory Lane, which shows that it will only be obliquely visible in the street scene. So it is a large set of buildings, but it is comparable to what's there already. So the proposal will increase the level of employment on a designated employment site within the district. It makes good use of urban land, and officers conclude that there are no conflicts with the development plan. So it is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. We have 2 speakers on this item. The first of which is Mr. Nathaniel Heem, who is joining Mr. Nathaniel Hill, who's joining us on MS Teams. Mr. Hill, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, good evening. I am Nathaniel Hill, Director of Select Shapes Limited. My company owns the neighbouring industrial and warehousing properties at the end of the narrow shared private roadway from Rectory Lane, which passes over the development site. So the proposed development directly affects us. We object to the development as the proposed parking is placed on the roadway and would materially obstruct our access over the shared roadway to our property. The plan submitted by the developer for consideration by the Planning Committee does not show the correct building line or describe with accurate measurements the extent of the shared access roadway. Any visiting service or delivery vehicles, as well as customers to the proposed 5 commercial units, have nowhere to park, load or unload. All visiting vehicles would have to reverse out the way they came in, as there is no provision for a turning area, because the development site access to the roadway ends at its northern boundary. Our tenants reasonably require 2-way access for delivery vehicles and large heavy goods vehicles daily. The parking bays, as they are planned, would prevent any large HGVs accessing the roadway from Rectory Lane with an increased swept angle. As it is, lorries often struggle to access the roadway in any event due to the current levels of traffic congestion on the access road, as shown in the photograph you just put up. Instead, often lorries are forced to load and unload by forklift truck at the entrance to the roadway, parking just off Rectory Lane before the yellow box junction in front of Buckingham Court. The added extra traffic congestion caused by the extra commercial units would increase the number of vehicles waiting to access the roadway on Rectory Lane itself. If the developer was to go ahead with the plans in their current form, we would seek a preventative injunction. The parking bays, as proposed, would not be implementable, given our rights over the entire roadway to pass and repass at all times, for all purposes, as registered against the development site with the land registry. We're not against development. We would welcome a plan for less units that did not obstruct our rights of access. That should include sufficient parking, turning, loading bays and service bays, together with an agreed traffic management plan to avoid congestion problems. I wish the committee to consider carefully the points I have put. I don't believe the plan is implementable because we would object and seek a preventative injunction.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Thank you. And next we have Mr. Peter Higginbottom, who's the applicant's agent, who is here in person. Mr. Higginbottom, we have 3 minutes.
Hello. Hi. Peter Higginbottom. I'm the agent on the planning application. First of all, thanks, committee, for the time this evening. I'd like to first highlight the importance of the principle of development. This is considered acceptable. It's an allocated site in the very recently adopted local plan. There's strong support within the local plan for the regeneration of existing employment sites such as this. The proposal will increase the existing floor space, supporting local employment in units that we consider are suitable for SME businesses. The design responds well to local context and we consider enhances the local area. This is a well-designed scheme which respects neighbouring properties. Neighbouring amenity is preserved as evidenced in design and daylight and sunlight assessment. In highway terms, the Highway Authority considers the development safe with appropriate levels of car and cycle parking. Existing rights of access are maintained, and I will come on further to that point in response to the objector. I'd also highlight the significant benefit that the development will achieve BREEAM Very Good rating and 47% reduction in CO2 emissions. Turning to some of the points raised by the objector, I think the CGI that the planning officer showed, it makes it very, very clear that there is actually a significant access way that will be maintained. It's exactly the same as the existing. The existing building line is taken back at ground floor level to provide for the parking, and the parking will not protrude further into the area as alleged. There is actually an increase in parking as well on site as part of the scheme. The transport statement accompanied with the application sets out that there will be the number of additional vehicle movements will be minimal and not significant to highway safety or the operation of the site. In terms of the right of access, in terms of the title plans, the neighbour has a right to reasonable access over the applicant's land. That will be maintained. Reasonable access is not a prescribed dimension, but the same level of access provision that exists today will be maintained following this development. Obviously, the objector is entitled to take their legal action if they wish, and that's something that members I don't think need to consider, but I'll leave that to yourselves. I'll close by urging that councillors to support the officer recommendation to approve the development and support the growth of the local economy. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll open up to members on the floor. We've got one of the ward councillors here, Councillor Caroline Pond. Did you want to start off the discussion?
Thank you. I was not happy with the metal recycling works that used to be on this site, which of course wasn't really suitable for the mainly residential area. However, I mostly am content with the current and proposed uses, subject to conditions protecting the residents nearby.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Williamson, did you want to go next?
Thank you, Chair. Could I just have a bit of confirmation on condition 11? I think it's regarding permitted development rights. Does that take away the permitted development rights to change this to residential without coming back to the council, first of all?
Yes, it does, wholeheartedly, just because we need to protect employment uses on employment sites, so that's exactly what it does.
Thank you. Councillor Sangha, did you want to?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a big improvement to what the building looks like at the moment. And in terms of generating employment in the local area, I think that's a good sign, especially after COVID as well, with businesses suffering. The Loughton Town Council have no objection, well, they have an objection, but if this, they're saying in their report, they'd welcome this if, like my colleague have just said, Councillor Williamson, providing there in the section 106, there is provision to say, a legal agreement to say that it will not go back, they will not come back with an application for residential use. I think that would be good. Otherwise, I personally don't have any issues with this application whatsoever. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Pond.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. A couple of points to make, I think, most. In principle, I'm not opposed to this development. It is the tidying up of a site which has been somewhat ramshackle and not particularly cared for in the past. So to that extent, I don't object. But I do take the point made by the objector on Zoom. I do think this is a rather constricted site, and I'm not surprised, but I'm rather disappointed to see the report from the county highways officer, because knowing this site reasonably well, I know it does get congested, and the substitution of 9 units will only make it, in my view, worse. But as the speaker for the applicant has said, this may be a civil matter, because I don't think it's necessarily a planning issue. I think the planning officers have probably acted on the advice of the highways officers, no matter how good or otherwise that advice is. I do think it might become a bit of a bottleneck. I wanted to ask the officer about condition number 6, which relates to windows. I would have been happier if the overlooking was obviated by obscured glass and or fixed windows in their frames, but I can't quite see whether condition 6 actually implies that. And so I'd like a comment from Mr. Rogers on that, and I might have one other issue to raise afterwards.
Yeah, quite right. That condition does not require obscure glazing. It's due to the height of the window that's proposed. But if members feel that obscure glazing would be required, then that can be added.
I must say I would be happier for the people who occupy the flats in the old Bloom and Feathers and the kitchen shop and other cottages nearby if the condition which Mr. Rogers has just mentioned would be imposed.
Yep, I think that sounds reasonable. But I will open up to a couple more members. Councillor Allgood, did you want to add anything else?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Okay, I'm listening to the objector with regards to the parking space. Can we show where the boundary is for the existing building in comparison to where it's proposed? Because I've got one person saying that it's exactly the same boundary, in which case I can't see the arguments, but I hear what our objector is saying.
So this is the existing site plan taken from the application, and this is the proposed site plan.
Sorry, so that does show that you've encroached on what was previously there, because where you've got the works, it says the building, that is now in line with that. If you go back to the other one, that is indented, so there is an encroachment. and I don't know how much that is. Are you with me?
To be honest, I don't have that information either. I would just comment that it's not relevant. It's not a planning matter when we're looking at this application. It would be, as the applicant alluded to, it would be a civil matter between the two of them.
I'm seeing that that is being replaced by a bigger footprint. Am I wrong?
No.
If anything, it looks smaller.
Can I also ask Mr. Rogers, if you wouldn't mind, whilst we've got the drawings up, if you wouldn't mind showing the proposed building in relation to the Loughton Town Council offices and whether it sits higher or lower compared to it? So we've got the CGI image in the corner, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the image, as you say. It is no higher than the Loughton Town Council office, just to be clear.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nweke and then Councillor Wixley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the question I wanted to ask has been asked by my colleague, so I'm happy.
Great. Councillor Wixley and then Councillor Annika.
Yeah, well, I'll just point out an error, pardon my misunderstanding, but what the officer keeps on pointing out is Loughton Town Council offices aren't Loughton Town Council offices. So he's got the wrong building. The building is in Buckingham Court, and I can show you where it is on the photograph, but it's not the building that you've been pointing to. So it's misleading to make that comparison.
Okay. I'll let Mr. Rogers come in, but it still sort of sits lower than what the building adjacent to it.
I appreciate that comment, but it's still lower than that adjacent building that is right next door to it.
The building isn't adjacent, you've got a completely wrong building.
Okay. And Councillor Annika Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the scheme, the design of the scheme, I think is good. It complements the site, and I think it will enhance the site. I mean, the debate is really around the access and parking provision, etc. The term reasonable access has been mentioned by the applicant's agent. Is there does that have is that defined within planning law, that term?
The access is an existing access. Matters to do with egress and access over someone else's land is not a planning consideration for us tonight. What we're looking at is it appropriate for this level of parking using an existing access?
Anybody else? Councillor Wixley, if you wanted to come back.
Well, I don't actually think there's sufficient parking because there are 5 units, 9 spaces, but one of those is for disabled use only. So really you're talking about 4 units having 2 spaces and 1 not having any space at all. So I think it's an overdevelopment of the site.
Okay. I think given that obviously the Highways Authority has said that there's no objection, I think I'm minded to agree with what a lot of has already been said so far. I think it's a designated employment area. It makes good use of the existing or the urban space that's available, and I think it will be a positive benefit to the local economy. I think it will generate jobs, and on planning grounds, simply on planning grounds, I think it's very difficult for us to refuse this. You know, I'm happy to hear any other views on it, but if there aren't any other contributions, then I think we'll go to a formal vote on this. Councillor Chris Pond, did you want to come back in quickly?
May we, if we go for an approval with conditions, may we add the additional obscure glazed condition? Thank you.
Yeah, as a point of order, I think if we vote on the addition of the extra condition proposed by, or do we have a seconder, I suppose, for that condition? Yeah, we've got a seconder. And Councillor Wixley, sorry, did you want to come back in very quickly?
If we are to agree to this, then I would also like to add another condition. I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of building of foundations, which is going to give rise to mud, so I can't see a wheel washing condition there. So if there isn't one there, I apologise if I've missed it. I would like that one added.
Mr. Rogers, if you wanted to...
Yeah, that can be done. Yeah. No problem.
Okay. And do we have a seconder for that extra condition? I've got fine. So, if we go to a vote on the addition of those 2 extra conditions, all those in favour?
I think that's agreed, Chairman.
Yeah, and if we go to the formal vote on the application, so the officer's recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of that?
(11), Chairman.
And all those against?
1, Chairman.
And do we have any abstentions?
2, Chairman.
Okay, so that application has been approved with the 2 extra conditions that have been noted. So if I move on to agenda item 10, any other business, Mr. Woodall?
No, Chairman, we have no other business tonight.
So in item 11, exclusion of public and press.
No, Chairman, we can exclude ourselves now.
Okay, thank you. So I officially close the meeting at 7:31. Thank you.